Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a digital marketer in life sciences. And before we get started today in our episode with Stavros Papadopoulos, I just wanted to share a quick message from our sponsor.
Episode of Life Science Success is brought to you by D3 Digital Media Marketing. Dive into the digital world with confidence and creativity on your side. D3 Digital Media Marketing is your all-in-one solution for making a lasting impact online. From the vibrant, engaging world of social media marketing, podcasts, and webinars, to the strategic depths of website development, SEO, and content marketing, we tailor our approach to fit your unique brand story. Let's elevate your presence and drive success together. Your digital journey starts here. Visit d3digitalmedia.com to learn more.
In this episode of Life Science Success, we're exploring innovative data management in life sciences with Dr. Stavros Papadopoulos. He's the founder and CEO of TileDB. Dr. Papadopoulos is sharing his experience in transforming how complex scientific data, especially in genomics and precision medicine, is managed. So with that, welcome, Stavros.
Hi, Don. I'm very glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it. And so as we get started here, would you mind just sharing a little bit with everybody, a little bit of your background? What is it that, also made you want to found TileDB?
Well, I'm a computer scientist by training. I come from Greece. I did my bachelor's degree there. And then I moved very early on to Hong Kong, where I got my PhD, also in computer science and all data management. My whole career has been on data management. Then I became a professor for a couple of years, very much into academics. And then I transitioned in 2014 from Hong Kong to Boston, where I started working for MIT and Intel Labs. Again, also on data management, trying to invent the next big thing for big data management. At the time, that was the fancy keywords that we were using. And I was fortunate enough to work with brilliant people there and create TileDB. So TileDB was started as soon as I joined Intel and MIT.
Oh, really? Yeah. And so whenever you started thinking about creating TileDB, what was the problem that you saw that needed to be solved?
So please bear with me. I will be a little bit technical just in the beginning, so that we understand a little bit the technical innovation behind TileDB. So up until that point, we're talking about 2014 here. The majority of research, as well as development in database systems, was centered around tabular data, like your clinical records, for example, go into tables. And there was a lot of research, and there's still a lot of research being done in tables. And then there were a couple of bespoke solutions for data types that are not tables, like time series, like key values, like documents, like graphs, like images, and I can go on and on. So for every data type, some companies and research labs were creating a new database system. At the time, I was also, as I mentioned, I was working at the intersection of academia, like MIT, as well as industry, Intel. And there was a huge pull from the machine learning and AI community. And there was a lot of work being done there. And my colleagues at Intel were working a lot on high-performance computing that revolved around computational linear algebra. And this is mathematics that lies at the core of machine learning and AI, and a lot of other statistical operations that are being done at scale for any data system. It doesn't need to be tabular databases. So I got a lot of observations from all of these systems. I was trying to identify whether that was the research hypothesis, whether there can be built a single system built on scientific primitives and adopting the relational algebra, the tabular aspects of commercial databases, so that we can build a single system to handle all these data types, all these modalities in one system. That was the premise. That was the technological question that we were asking. And that's what we built. And then we saw a lot of pull from different verticals. We will focus, of course, on life sciences in this podcast, and I will explain how this technology solves some very important problems in life sciences. But that was the scientific question that we asked when we were there. Can we build a single system that can handle multiple different data types?
And I guess for my amateur mind as well, just one little bit of clarification, right? So a lot of different databases, I believe, could store, images and things like that. They would just do it in tables, right? So they would sort of segment the data based on tables. And it sounds to me like at some level, TileDB is different.
Yeah, it is fundamentally different. You mentioned images. Let's focus on images, but this conversation transcends images. It can go. We can have the same discussion about DNA sequencing, RNA sequencing, and other data types like graphs. The solutions we've seen, and this is unfortunately, one of the pitfalls of the database market. There is a lot of confusion in the market. If you want to store images in a table, there are two ways to do this. The first way that most people do is that they store only the metadata in tables, not the image itself. The metadata in a table, like, I don't know, the width, the height, who created it, what kind of an image it is, and other metadata, useful metadata about the image. And then they store a link to the place where you store the actual image on AWS S3 in the cloud, or on Dropbox, on Google Drive, and so on and so forth. They're not storing the raw image. And therefore, when you want to do operations on the raw image, these are done outside of the database. And there are a lot of problems with that. The first and foremost, there's no governance. Once you move it outside of the secure environment of the database, you're on your own. So you need to use your own tools to visualize, to process, to run machine learning. And that might be okay, but you need to build another secure environment. And this creates a lot of headaches in production in big organizations. So that's one. The second way we've seen is that you hack it. So for example, you take the image may be microscopic image, it may be a very large image. They segment it into little tiles, pun intended here, into tiles. And then they're storing the tiles as rows, and then they're creating their own index, so that they can find where each tile is. And then again, the information within the tile is in a column value in this database. Effectively, they're turning a tabular database into something that TileDB does. They converge to our technology, which is a tile-based multidimensional array technology. And we don't advise that because it takes a long time. It is as if you're building a different database on top of a tabular database. So TileDB is fundamentally different in that it natively stores images and the rest of the data types, including tables, because of this multidimensional array technology that we adopted instead of tables.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important to kind of set that initial stage of, how are we looking at something that's fundamentally different today than what most companies oftentimes deal with tabular databases. So you talked a little bit about your experience at Intel and MIT. How has that influenced your approach to management and analytics?
Yeah, so I was extremely lucky. So let's take a moment to think about this. I was working with one of the best database groups in the world, with people like Sam Madden and Mike Stonebreaker. Those people are giants. Mike Stonebreaker has a Turing Award. He created Postgres, the database that pretty much everybody's using. Sam Madden has created so many other companies together with Mike Stonebreaker and independently as well. So the database aspects I got from MIT, and we went very deep. And I got all of this experience because those folks were sharing their experiences with me and their expertise. Intel were experts in scientific and high performance computing. So supercomputing level operations, very optimized, very mathematical. The structures they were using were arrays. They were multidimensional arrays because linear algebra operates on matrices and vectors, so arrays. And I just combined the two. That's pretty much what happened. Like I got the knowledge from high performance computing from Intel and traditional and commercial databases from MIT, and I fused these two. And this is what created this powerful foundation for TileDB.
And I mean, I guess that one of the things that I heard also in your story, right, is that you were a professor for a while, now have transitioned to entrepreneurship. What sort of inspired you or made you say, hey, look, I want to actually go create this and run it myself, versus sort of spinning out the idea into and having somebody else run it?
Yeah. So I always had an inclination towards entrepreneurship, but I knew nothing about it. I didn't have any mentorship, or I had zero knowledge about how to create companies, what it takes to do this, how to raise money, especially in this domain where we're dealing with deep tech. You need fundraising. It's very difficult to do it in a bootstrap way, meaning just on your own with customers, and grow it organically. This requires millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars to be built. It's a complicated piece of software that requires time and money. So I always thought that I would create a company, but I knew nothing about this. And also, I knew that I would do it after I do my PhD, after I get all this technical background. I knew at least that. When I started TileDB, I wasn't thinking about making it in its own company. My initial goal was to build it at the research level at MIT and Intel, and hopefully create a small team around it and create innovations on this foundation that is called TileDB. Like we will do, again, some optimize high performance computing tasks or machine learning tasks and so on and so forth. So have the foundation and create a small team in the labs and innovate there. That was the initial idea. We got a little bit of industrial validation through a group that I work with at Intel in life sciences. So we could see a little bit of a pull from genomics because we saw that we're giving a massive performance speed up and we're solving very important problems in life sciences that other systems just can't do at all. So we're not talking about a 20% speed up, we're talking about a 20x speed up. And that's significant. So we got a little bit of validation, but still I was thinking that I would do it at Intel. So what happened is that completely randomly, I met with another Greek scientist at MIT, completely randomly, and he was asking me about what I'm doing. So I explained to him, and he told me this is a textbook startup. He had already done a startup, he had exited, and now at the time he was a researcher. And he said, come by my office, I'm going to give you a couple of books to read. I do believe that you should start a startup, and I will invest in you as an angel investor. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah, and I had to learn everything from scratch. So, like I spent 6 months just studying and hanging out with mentors. And then, of course, this continued to this day, 8 years later. I continue to study. I continue to hang out with mentors. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love these stories, right? Because to me, it's sort of, hey, look, I had this idea, I have this passion, I have, other people surrounding me that, also can help me along. And, yeah, to me, it's fundamental in terms of, how most entrepreneurs, I feel like, sort of get that initial spark, but then, yeah, it just sort of grows from there.
Correct.
So can you share a little bit more about TileDB's mission and how it's addressing challenges in life sciences?
Yeah, so our mission is to accelerate breakthroughs through data, no matter how big and how complex. We believe that the insights lie in the data. And our broad mission is to accelerate breakthroughs. That's it. Now, on the vision side, how we implement this is by building this powerful database technology that brings all this data in a single place. And we don't do it out of greed, right? We don't do it because we're saying, we're going to build this universal thing and we're shooting in the sky. No, it is because the power is infusing these different modalities in these big organizations. If you silo the data, then you're leaving a lot of breakthroughs on the table. So that was our observation, that if you bring everything in an efficient manner and in a discoverable manner in a single platform, you will accelerate the breakthroughs. So that is our vision.
Very good. And in terms of accelerating research, I mean, I guess to tell me a little bit more about, you know, how it, you know, sort of delivers on that overall vision.
Perhaps we can talk about an example. There are multiple ones, but I usually say that we're solving two problems. It's the same problem, but it has two aspects. The first aspect in discovery revolves around difficult data in terms of both complexity and size. Genomics is one example. There are data sets that have been compiled in a very cumbersome manner and a very expensive manner, like the UK Biobank data set. This is just one data set, okay? Like, it's a collection of 500,000 and growing samples, DNA samples from people, from humans. And this data is massive. It's very big, and it's big in complexity as well. Like, you know, they come in a weird format that the bioinformaticians understand. And there's a lot of jargon, and there's, again, a lot of complexity. And you can't just put it in a tabular database. We've tried that. It doesn't work. You think it works, it doesn't. Because, again, we have tried it. It doesn't work in terms of cost, and it doesn't work in terms of performance, and it doesn't work in terms of usability. The bioinformaticians have specific tools. They are accustomed to specific APIs and languages, and that's not usually SQL, like what you use in relational databases. You want something more specialized. So if you can process this data, you cannot get to insights. Like, for example, we're working very closely with Rady Children's Hospital and Alexion and some other partners in a consortium called the Beginnings Consortium. And the idea is that we want to be able, well, these pioneering doctors want to discover rare diseases for newborns immediately when they're born, right, at the NICU. Because if they discover that something is wrong in their DNA, they can take action. They can save their lives. But in order to do this, they need to get the DNA sequencing, the DNA sequence of the baby, of the newborn, and then correlate it, then analyze it in conjunction with these massive data sets to find patterns. But if you have no way to process this data, you can't discover the disease in time. And you may not be able to save the life of a newborn. This is amazing. So TileDB can do that. It can handle data sets at that scale. So it's the complexity and size as one piece of the puzzle, and this is what TileDB does very uniquely. And we have proven it. We're a small company, but we're testing this out against conglomerates, and the performance difference is just massive. So that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is in the fusion of the data, as I mentioned, because you have the DNA sequence, you have the variant data, but then you want the clinical data as well, the phenotypic data. Then maybe you need some imaging data, and you want to combine this data, right? The doctor needs to be able to have a holistic view of a patient in order to make decisions. And usually this data lives in different systems. It's extremely difficult for the doctor or any other practitioner to gain access to the data. Like, first to find the data, like where is this clinical data? Which database system is it stored in? And also, how do I gain access to it? Because there might be an administrator that has access, but I may not have access to this. And how do we do this securely? So the second problem is how to discover the data, how to actually find the data and then do something with it. So you need to catalog all this data and bring it in one system for secure operations. And that's the second the second problem that we're solving. Like cataloging all this data in a secure way and granting access in a secure way to the appropriate people.
Yeah, the interesting part to me in this story is, so as we came through the pandemic, I think a lot of pharmaceutical companies came through and saw the fact that, you know, they had all this disparate data for all the research that they had done for different types of studies, right? So whether it's SARS, MERS, Ebola, et cetera, and all of a sudden in COVID, those data sets were very much needed to carry the science forward, to try and find, you know, how do we treat this thing? How do we attack it back, and not just let it continue to kill humans? And the unfortunate thing is, I think, you know, a lot of time was spent from people that honestly their brilliance is better spent in the lab or trying to figure out what's the next cure versus tagging data. And, you know, as I hear your story as well, you know, the ability to continue to empower data catalogs is, you know, one of the things that I've often wondered, you know, rather than spending human cycles on trying to figure out how to best tag data, wouldn't it be better to try and figure out a better way to have the machine figure it out, you know, as well? I guess the second example that I would use as well is, I mean, whenever you see NGS data that comes in, oftentimes the data set is very broad, and these data scientists are absolutely brilliant in their way of saying, I want this piece, I don't want this piece. And so they just continue to sort of filter through the data until they can see a much clearer picture of the things that they're looking for. But unfortunately, they have to start with the broad data set and sort of continue that filtering and working through actual human samples to figure out how do we best bring the picture of, you know, does the baby potentially have a life-threatening disease or something that could impact their, you know, their life as well. And it sounds to me like TileDB, you know, definitely something that, you know, helps with that, you know, in a large way.
Yes, absolutely. And you bring up a good point. You do have the data, you know it is somewhere, but you need to filter through. And you're going to be surprised. The way this data is stored usually is most typically in an object store like AWS S3, because it's a lot of data. You need it to be on the cloud, and you need it to be inexpensive. So AWS S3 is a good choice for that. But then the data sets are code-named. They have file name. It's files. S3 provides you with effectively a file system, right? It's like a virtual hard disk. That's how you should think about it. And you can browse the file names, but the metadata is not there. You need another system for metadata. You don't have descriptions, and it's difficult to locate this data. You need to be a true expert in code names and, you know, browsing S3. Imagine if you had a catalog and you can do either keyword search or even AI search, right? Like with an LLM. This is what TileDB does very, very easily. Once the data is in the system, once the data is registered properly in the system, and once you have the data registered properly in the system with all the metadata and, you know, everything that a scientist is supposed to be doing with this data, then we can start training AI models to figure out the next data that comes into the system. You see what I mean? Some folks, unfortunately, are jumping a couple of steps. They're skipping a couple of steps, and they're saying, yeah, the AI is going to figure it out. The AI will figure it out once you have the proper data management and infrastructure in place to train it so that it understands what you want to do in the future. And again, we're big proponents of that.
Yeah. Ultimately so important. Can you tell us about any recent projects or collaborations that you're particularly excited about?
Absolutely. The one that I mentioned is one of the big ones with Ready Children's Hospital and Alexion on newborn screening. This is meaningful work. I mean, these people are brilliant. What we're doing is that we are accelerating them. This is exactly what we're saying. We're building in-house expertise as well. We have our own scientists, but they're doing the breakthroughs. But we are accelerating these breakthroughs with our technology. The other project that excites us a lot is what we're doing with the Charles Zuckerberg Initiative on building these big cell atlases. This is on RNA sequencing on single cell. And this data allows them and others, other companies like Celarity, for example, to build AI models on single cell data. And that's also amazingly important. This may accelerate the cure in cancer, for example, by understanding the complexities of the cell biology. So these are just some examples on what we've been doing with some of our customers.
Thank you. So as the founder of TileDB, what's been the most unexpected aspect of leading a startup?
Well, everything has been unexpected because everything was new. I'm a scientist by training, so I had to learn everything. So everything was unexpected. Fundraising, I didn't know how this goes. It's a whole game. How are you going to raise money? How are you going to convince investors, right, to fund this innovation? And as a scientist, I thought that would be obvious, right? Here, I'm building the best database system in the world. No, nobody owes you money for that. You see, it was a very big mental and philosophical shift for me in my mind that, no, this is not how things work. Similarly, for the customers, you may have the best technology ever. Still, the customer, for other reasons that are not in your control whatsoever, they may not go with your technology. It doesn't matter if you had the best evaluation and you're 20 times faster. It doesn't matter. Still, there are other things that need to be done in an organization to adopt your technology. And for me, that was astonishing, right? As a scientist, you think that I have the best database system, it needs to succeed. Well, that doesn't happen in the business world. You need to take care of other aspects of business to make this happen. And then, of course, building the team, building the proper culture, finding the right leaders. There are so many different aspects of the business that the leader needs to take care of, and all of this was astonishing to me. It's a completely different world from science.
That's a perfect transition to my next question. How do you balance the technical aspects with the business leadership responsibilities inside the organization?
In the past, I wasn't doing it, right? In the past, first of all, out of need, as we were scaling the company. I mean, I started the company as a single person, right? Then we became 4, then we became 12, then we became 50, right? Very slowly. So in the beginning, and for many years, I don't know for how long, probably 4 years or so, I was coding. I was an independent contributor in the code as any other one of my fellow teammates, right? But in order to scale the organization and in order to be able to tend to other aspects of the business, I had to step away from coding, from the technical aspects, and do more of the business aspects. Otherwise, you need to bring another business leader. And this was not happening in our case because, and I think for a good reason, and it's because to build a company like this, the leader needs to be extremely technical, extremely. They need to understand deeply the technology being built and the hurdles, as well as the customer's needs that are also technical and scientific. So you need to be able to understand both the technology, the science, and the business, all of these 3 things. But what I did with the help of my investors, of course, a little bit better is that the first part is that I started trusting my technical team much more because they became very experienced as well. They became very strong. So they were better than me anyway, which is great. Like this is important. You need to hire people that are better than you for each of the aspects of the business that you're hiring for. That's a trait of a good leader that I learned along the way. So that was one of the things that made me balance a little bit the business and technology. The technology was being taken care of, and then by building a bigger leadership team, then I could balance even the business aspect, because the technology is one, the technical thing is one, but also business needs balancing as well. There are multiple aspects like marketing and sales and HR and all of these things I was doing for many years. Now, not so much. So now I for the technical aspects, I participate in technical designs at a higher level. And I delve into details only if we stumble upon a very difficult algorithmic problem or data structures problem or technical problem that I have expertise to contribute to. Because again, even the technology has multiple aspects. There is the algorithmic aspect, the mathematical aspect, and then the system security aspect. Well, I'm better in the algorithmic design. I'm better in the mathematical design rather than the systems design and the security, the system security design.
Sure. Yeah. It's important to know where your strengths lie for sure and how to best leverage your team. So thank you for sharing that. What's the greatest piece of leadership advice that you've ever received?
Again, I'm right now I'm overwhelmed with this information as a first-time founder. It's truly a lot. I'll pick a couple, but there are truly many. Everything I did not do organically. I had to learn it. I had to learn it from, or I didn't do it naturally. I'm sorry. It's not that I thought about doing something. It came to me one morning. I had to study it in some book or watch a podcast or a video or talk to a mentor. The first advice, which might seem a little bit straightforward and trivial, but it wasn't for me. It was the balancing technology and business by surrounding myself with proper leaders. This is trivial if you think about it, but not for me, not for a technical founder, right? Who built everything from scratch and from the beginning. It's not exactly trivial, but I had to be coached on that, and I had to be able to start trusting people a little bit more on that aspect. So this is the first, and the second is again on the trust side. Like give time to the people that surround you, give them space, and as long as you decide that these people are here for the long term. And that's exactly what I did. Like I invested in people for the long run. Most of the people in the company have been around almost from the beginning, and the others I'm investing in the long run because these are partners. Like you're gonna work with them, and the result will come.
Yeah, it's so important that that I feel like some of the best leaders are almost like collectors of people. And some of the best leaders sort of have this broader network where they say, hey, look, I can piece these couple of things together and make these connections of these individuals, and through that it continues to expand your experience. And that's what I hear in a portion of your answer as well, is that that's something that you also do to build not just your own knowledge, but also just kind of know where your strengths are as well.
This is 100% true. I would say two things. First is the vision. The leader needs to have a vision, be up to date with the market and what people need, and make sure that you have a very strong mission and vision. And the second is building extremely strong teams. But that's not what I was doing in the beginning of the company, right? When I was starting the company, I was doing a lot of implementation. I was doing a lot of design. I was solving technical and scientific problems. And that's all good, and I'm happy and proud that I did that. But in order to scale the business, if I want to be in this role, in the CEO role, that's not my job. My job is to surround myself by very, very capable people. And you're absolutely right. Some of my investors keep on telling me that the best CEOs they've seen, they don't do much. Once they do, once the vision is there, don't get me wrong, once the vision is there, and once the team is there, and for a very well-functioning team, it's just overview. I'm not there yet. I still delve into details, but I'm definitely much better than I was last year or the year before. And so like I see improvement as we're progressing.
Thank you for sharing that. So what inspires you?
I have always been inspired by technology as a whole, but what surprised me was the problems we're solving. I mean, I always wanted to solve real world problems because in research, coming from the academic world, the majority of the ideas they may look like science fiction in the beginning. 20 years later, no. 20 years later, you see them applied. And this is the beauty of research. But you're always trying to solve something that will come in the future, right? Whereas with building a startup, you're solving problems of now, immediately, like a big pain that customers have so that your business is sustained. I was surprised with the kinds of problems we're solving with TileDB, because TileDB is a database technology, right? And I wasn't thinking that we're gonna be helping doctors save babies' lives, or creating AI models to understand, cell biology that can unlock precision medicine and find cures to diseases that have been plaguing us for centuries, right? Like that's not what I was thinking when I was building the company. So this is extremely inspirational. So the problems we're solving, and then the people I'm solving the problems with, the people in the company, and also the customers and partners that we're solving these problems with. This is very inspirational for me.
Absolutely. What concerns you?
The biggest concern I have is the confusion that exists in the market when it comes to data technologies. And I will elaborate why this concerns me. At the end of the day, or given enough time, innovation is going to come, right? Like if you give it enough time, and if TileDB doesn't exist, at some point, some other data company is going to expand their data types, right? They're going to go from tables to images, and then they're going to go to NGS data, and then they're going to go to something else, right? At some point. And then at some point, this is going to be adopted, and then at some point, the scientists are going to start making breakthroughs, maybe in 30 years from now. But with TileDB, you can do it now. So what concerns me is that if this is not adopted immediately, we're losing 30 years worth of innovation and of breakthroughs. And try to imagine how many lives can be saved in these 30 years. It's going to happen at some point, right? In 30 years, we will have the technology to save lives from that point onwards. But think a little bit about it philosophically. If you have the opportunity to innovate today and save lives for the next 30 years, would you do it or not? For me, the answer is clear, right? Of course you would do it. So what concerns me is that confusion in the market about what kind of technologies will help these breakthroughs, because there is a lot of innovation. There are a lot of companies out there. There are a lot of technologies. This confusion is what decelerates breakthroughs. It's not the lack of technology. It's the existence of so many technologies and so much noise that those big organizations that are making these breakthroughs have available, and they may get confused along the way. And we're seeing this. For example, you said, hey, how about you put an image in a table? Well, that alone is a misconception that can, right? That can delay you. Like if you think that an image needs to go to a table, it's gonna take you a couple of years to understand that actually, no, this is not right. We need to put it in a specialized system or a more specialized system, and we need to accelerate whatever insights we're getting from these images that a tabular database is not going to give me. So this is the biggest concern I have. It's the time. I believe we can do it now, but I'm seeing the whole market and the whole technology moving slower than it should because of this confusion.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, right, healthcare and life sciences especially is slow to adopt unless they're forced, right? So, I mean, there are some forcing functions that happen, pandemics and things like that, that sort of, recalibrate everybody and make people question quickly why we do things the way that we do. But in addition to that, it's just, the natural sort of pace of business in life sciences is amazingly slow to adopt and shift whenever needed. But at the same time, once they see, kind of the positive side of the future, I feel like, we're sort of at that point where things sort of, then accelerate, because now all of a sudden everybody understands, to your very good point. So Last question, what excites you?
Well, I talked about my concern, which is this confusion, but the confusion comes from a lot of technology that exists out there. This is also what excites me. It may sound a little bit contradictory, but it is not. Like the innovation aspect of this excites me. There is innovation. There are technologies. AI will reshape a lot of things if it is adopted a little bit more considerately. Um, um, by building first the data infrastructure and then adopting AI as a powerful technology in order to find even to unlock insights that you couldn't see, or to get to insights faster. So this innovation excites me, right? What we're advocating is that this innovation needs to be done in a principled manner, right? Without following hypes, without being confused with a million things, by doing proper due diligence on the technologies that exist out there and how good they are and what they lack. But for me, we are in one of the most exciting domains ever, both the data technologies and, of course, the life sciences vertical that we chose as one of our prime verticals. Extremely exciting things ahead.
Very good. Well, Dr. Stavros Papadopoulos, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success podcast. I greatly appreciated you being here and for, sharing with us, all of the positive things that come with working in data sets in a different way through TileDB. So thanks a lot for being on. I appreciate your time and, wish you all the best.
Thank you, Don. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.